What are they gonna think about us in the future when they go metal detecting and they find a spot full of batteries and crack pipes? What's up, everybody? I'm here in a homeless camp in Bradenton, Florida. I went metal detecting in a homeless camp. Now, here's a phone that's seen better days. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Lakewood Ranch, Florida. This is a truck I've been eyeing. And they make these in Alabama. That's why I would never buy one, man. I love how these salespeople see my camo outfit and they're not interested in trying to sell me a car. But my credit's 100, man. And when I mean like 100, I mean like it's 100%. Not like it's 100, like on that scale I got. And they're all in Alabama. And what's crazy is this is a nice suburban area. This is not a bad area. I mean, you're talking about, you got a brand new tropical smoothie. You got, you know, this is not like a horrendous area. Now, I had already heard about Needle Creek. I just didn't know if it was a real place or not. But somebody finally pointed me in the wrong direction and we found it. And let's see if we can see evidence that this really is a Needle Creek like we've heard. Now, on the intersection of 64 and 75, there were at least 4 people panhandling. This is Needle Creek. Let's see if we can find them. So the question arises, when you give people money on the side of the road, what do they use it for? And well, when I go in these homeless camps, one of the things that I find the most often is going to be alcohol. But that's not the only thing you find in these homeless camps. I am wearing some pretty heavy duty boots in case I were to step on something, which I don't know how true that is, that you can step on a needle. But I'm sure if we're wearing flip-flops, it would be a nightmare. But supposedly, even though they came through and cleaned it up, once people have a habit of going somewhere and doing something, even if they clean it up, a few of them managed to find their way back. Yesterday, I did some videos in an adjacent area from here, and you might have seen that at the start of the video. And what happens there in those places is that it was 113 degrees. I nearly had a heat stroke, and well, it was just horrendous. Now, there's an apartment complex right there that's brand new, or newer, nicer apartments, and the people are complaining of a lot of raccoons. And the reason there's raccoons is because with these homeless camps, it generates a lot of garbage. The raccoons learn to eat off of human waste, and they abandon their natural eating habits. And you can definitely tell this is a homeless camp. They set up a tripwire here, so if you come through, you can fall. Now, I don't know what's going on here, but yep, there they are, right there. You can see the needle caps, so this is Needle Creek, and they were not freaking lying. There are needle caps everywhere. Now, from what I heard, the city came through. Somebody's running. The city came through, and they cleaned up the actual needles. But you can see the caps are everywhere. So let's get in here. And guys, we have found the famous Needle Creek here in Bradenton. And it is true. I had heard people tell me stories about Needle Creek, but I'm here right now, and you see thousands of needle caps, but what you don't see are the actual needles, which they came through and cleaned them. So here it is right there. You can see there's like a black tarry substance on this needle, and this is in fact Needle Creek. And most of the time, the stuff that they're putting on this, there's no telling what is on these needles. And as you look around, there really are needles and paraphernalia scattered everywhere. I don't know what these things are, but they're everywhere. And again, all these things could have residue on them, a fent, and all you have to do is touch this stuff and you drop down to the ground. You're done. Now, this is a straw, but you can see they've done something to it. And this is why they call this place Needle Creek. It's just everywhere. I mean, this place is literally a landmine at this point. I mean, it is just everywhere you look. everywhere. You may have heard Bradenton referred to as Bradentucky. That's, a combination of the words Bradenton and Kentucky, because Kentucky has one of the highest, especially Eastern Kentucky, has one of the highest overdose rates in the country. So by calling this place Bradentucky, it would kind of suggest that this place here has a Kentucky-like situation with the addiction problem. So when they told me that there was 10,000 needles out here, I didn't believe it, but I can definitely see now how it's not an exaggeration. I mean, when somebody told me there was 10,000 needles out here, I seriously didn't believe it. Like, I was like, there's no way there's really a creek with 10,000 needles. But now that I'm in here, I mean, I can see how there'd be 10,000 needles here. I mean, here's one, and the end off it melted somehow. I'm not sure why. If in this little area there's maybe 40, 50 needles, in an area twice that size there'd be 100, there'd be 1,000. Yeah, it's very possible that there really are 10,000 needles here, and that is absolutely insane. And if you're walking through here, you don't see too many signs of homelessness, so it would be easy to confuse this place with a place that doesn't have needles. Like, you could just be walking through here or fishing along this creek and not realize that you're walking over a landmine of needles. And there's a tent here that's been cut up by law. Now, the police comes through with knives and they cut the tents. Now, technically, that is illegal. This is technically illegal for the police to come with a knife and cut up the tents. Because in order to destroy property, you have to have a warrant. But here's the thing, and I've talked to several people about this dilemma. Yes, it is illegal for law enforcement to do this. They need a warrant. To get a warrant, they have to go to the court and get the judge to issue. Or they have to have a certified agent, which would be somebody assigned by the property owner. Most of these property owners are just investors. They could be in China for all you know. So they can't really get that permission. So what they do is they come through with knives and they destroy the homeless camps like they've done here. That is technically illegal. And the homeless people, if they were to set up a trail camera, let's say, and catch the cops doing it, they could definitely sue the police department, because the liability wouldn't be on the officer, it would be on the agency. So it is illegal. But at the same time, there's no real legal avenue for law enforcement to evict these people. Like, recently, I interviewed a guy who was arrested for possession of paraphernalia. And it turns out that the stuff was 5 feet away from him. So the cop arrested him for possession. But when they went in, it wasn't on him. It wasn't in his possession, so they had to let him go. So sometimes police officers increasingly find themselves perverting the law in order to try to arrest the people that are doing these things. And I've had a lot of people tell me that if I start exposing the things that law enforcement's doing wrong in these homeless camps, that eventually I'm going to end up getting some type of retaliation from law enforcement. And it's very possible. But I try to be neutral. I show the side of law enforcement, and I also show the side of homeless people as a neutral thing. And unfortunately, if I find stuff like this, I do have to explain why it's like that. And if the reason it's like that is because law enforcement did it, then I have to explain it. I'm not going to cover up for criminals. Like, I'm showing you guys that these people are doing something illegal that's contaminating our environment. So if I have no problem exposing the criminals and homeless people, then if I run into something that law enforcement's done wrong or illicitly, I shouldn't have to pick and choose what I upload. When I go into these places, I'm going to show my audience raw what's going on. And if law enforcement engages in an activity that is not exactly 100% legal, but the evidence is left behind. But the problem arises that, for example, places like this are usually private property, and they're investors or hedge funds, and the law enforcement doesn't have the authorization from any particular entity that owns these properties to be an authorized agent to do evictions or to trespass people even. And a lot of the homeless people, they don't know their rights. But I'm not homeless, and I know these laws. I live in this community, and I don't want homeless people camping out, leaving needles in the places that I go fishing. And I swim in these waters. I fish in these waters. I live in this community. I don't want needles everywhere. So if I see a police officer here in my community extracting homeless people, and they somewhat or another don't abide by all the rules in the book, I'm sorry to tell you, but I don't want these homeless people in my community. So sometimes there's a necessary evil where law enforcement has to be the bad guy to get rid of the bad guy. But at the same time, I live in this community. I don't want to have a Needle Creek behind my house. So, there's two sides to every story. And sometimes the problem is that the law enforcement by the courts isn't given the necessary resources to be able to enact efficient law and order. And the police officers, they have to work outside of textbook because they're not given the resources that they need. Here's another tent that's been cut up. In the case of this particular homeless camp, where you have a creek that's got thousands of needles in it, and then you also have contamination of a beautiful, pristine area, I can honestly say that at least in the community that I live in, I don't want these homeless camps, because these aren't elderly people. These aren't people that are struggling. A lot of times, I've even seen the homeless people that live in these camps in my community pretend like they have a disability, pretend like they are in a wheelchair when they're really not, so that they can trick people into empathy for them to give them money, which they then use to buy the drugs and needles that are littering our environment. So you have to understand, I'm not exposing law enforcement, but if I interview a homeless person and they start to talk about how law enforcement goes about eradicating them from these tents, I have to upload it. I didn't purposely seek to make law enforcement look like they're breaking the law when I do these videos, because sometimes they do go outside the law, and the evidence that they're doing is overwhelming, to the point where even some of their affiliate news sources have published articles saying that law enforcement is doing things that are technically destruction of property and illegal. So it's not just the homeless people that I'm interviewing. It's also a lot of the news sources that are working in collaboration with law enforcement, and they have, unbeknownst to them, actually wrote articles explaining how law enforcement is going about it, and it's an illicit method of extraction for these people. The problem is that there doesn't exist laws on the books for law enforcement to actually be able to extract the people. So they have to work outside of legal perimeters, because I'm going to be honest with you, I live in this community and I don't want this. Now, if a county has a problem like Pasco or Brevard, then you have thousands of homeless people. At that point, you can't systematically break the law against thousands of people. At that point, you have to seek a legal avenue. But anyways, I'm not here to expose law enforcement. That's not what we do on our channel. I live here, and I don't want a Needle Creek in the community that I live in. So if the laws on the books don't provide these police officers with the proper legitimate methods to extract these people from land they don't own, in structures that are not permitted, if code enforcement and law enforcement doesn't have laws in the books to do that, well, the people have to do something, the people in law enforcement, to eradicate this problem. I kid you not, even though I'm wearing a glove, my arm feels like it's freaking dead. Like, I literally feel like my arm is limp. This stuff is so dangerous that even if you don't physically ingest this stuff, if you just touch it, it like literally soaks through your glove, I guess. My arm literally feels numb. And how people can do this to their bodies and inject this stuff into their bodies, not knowing what it is. There's another very interesting artifact. It's a glove and a can. And I'm guessing that what they are doing with this is either huffing. I can't really tell what they were doing with this, but they've wrapped a glove around a can of gloves just like the one I'm wearing, and then they put holes in it. Now, I don't know if they're using this as a huffing device or as a bong type of device, or if they're planning to put their needles inside of here so that the needles will not stab people. I don't know what this contraption is, whether it's to collect needles or if it's to ingest, but it's definitely, undoubtedly, in some way or another related to illicit use or the byproducts of paraphernalia. So yes, I live here in Lakewood Ranch and Bradenton. I have a Bradenton address, and I don't want this stuff in my community. And I almost understand, at least in my community, that I don't want this garbage in my community. And if it's a complicated issue, it really is. Let's keep moving through these woods and see what else we can find here. Guys, one reason I don't like to wear gloves is because once you have touched something, then you have to litter. You have to dispose of the glove. You can't take it with you. You can't put it in your pocket where then it's making contact with your body. And, well, that is one reason why I don't like to wear gloves. But on a site like this, wearing gloves is possibly your only option. You can see there's also Ziploc bags. And that you can see that the raccoons been eating and chewing on these Ziploc bags. I've also seen bottles of medicinal bottles, like, you know, those bottles you use for your prescriptions, and they all always shoot up. You know, they chew them up. If I had to take a guess, I would say that raccoons and other animals that live in these places eventually also become addicted to these substances. Because I've noticed, like you can see an animal shoot that up, and there's no reason why the animals that are in contact with this stuff wouldn't also end up being contaminated. I mean, you think they throw their needles into this creek. Could you imagine, let's say there's kids playing, you know, or whatever, and they just happen to decide that they want to swim in this creek. I bet you this water, with as many needles as there are on this site, could possibly even have, you know, this water would come up positive for all types of things. Or if you were to fall into this creek while working here or something, there's no telling the amount of contamination that a site like this holds. And you can see there's new apartments right there, and the people in those apartments, the apartment actually now has a bad review. It's got a 3.5 because so many people have reviewed the apartment complex badly because the amount of raccoons. But you figure, if the raccoons are in here ingesting all this fent, you know, the raccoons are in here ingesting fent, eventually they're going to get hooked on it, and then they're going to want more, and then they're going to go into the apartments, and it's just going to, you know, I'm not speculating, but I really wouldn't doubt if, like, the raccoons here are already kind of users themselves. Here's a beautiful apartment complex, no different than the one that I live in, or gated community, no different than the one I live in. And you have to overlook a landfill, and I'm sure they've came in here and removed a lot of the garbage. What you're seeing here is possibly just a fraction of what was originally in this site. Now, one of my personal favorite hobbies is metal detecting. And there's a lot of old fields here and great places to metal detect in Bradenton. Unfortunately, once a homeless camp gets established, the amount of litter that they bring into these sites means that you'll never ever again will you be able to metal detect here. Okay, guys. So, well, we know what this is. Okay. Okay. How do I even explain this? The things that you find in these homeless camps. What the crap? But unfortunately, these efforts are ineffective since, despite the fact law enforcement comes in and tears out the camps like they did here, you could tell that there were thousands of needles at this particular site. Unfortunately, even though they came in and cleared it, these people are going to go and make another camp somewhere else. I interview the homeless people, and I encourage people to have more empathy on a lot of my videos. But the reality is that most of these people don't want to work. They want to get in the woods, not pay rent, not have to work, not to have any responsibilities. And then they want to be addicts. And then they don't even want to work for that. They want you to give them the money that you worked for their addictions. And that is where the vast majority of people in society draw a line and say, I'm not supporting your habit. I'm not enabling you to be a crackhead or a junkie. And, you know, on my videos, I give everybody that I meet the benefit of the doubt. But the reality is that despite the fact I give people the benefit of the doubt, a lot of them, I'm not saying all the people I interview, but a lot of them are nothing more than master manipulators who know how to work your emotions to get sympathy. So you help them and they turn around and use that money for their addiction. So it really is an unfortunate cycle. And most of us choose the wise choice, which is not to be part of it. They cost property owners thousands of dollars. Could you imagine how much money this property owner had to spend to clean up these homeless camps? And even after they clean it, there's still needles left behind that could hurt, you know, anybody that ever comes into this property. There's a biohazard contamination that happens on these sites. But, you know, these sites will never be the same. They're contaminated forever. But the ecological damage that these places bestow on our society is just unimaginable. Here's toilet paper that I'm literally walking over. You know, as a society, we all have responsibility. Here's a bone. My goodness, it's a big bone at that. You can clearly see that it belongs to an animal, though, or a dog. But there's a carcass right here. Maybe it's a raccoon. Maybe it's a possum. I'm not sure if anybody knows what it is, but there's a carcass right here of an animal. Just the clear bones, actually. That's all it's a little... Spider web in my mouth. Here's a bus stop, right? Here in Bradenton, here's the blue and orange bus stop. So if you look underneath it, they hid a spoon right there. And they use that spoon in conjunction with the needle. They're using bus stops to stash their crap. You can see right here, there's a garbage bag full of cans, and that's what they spend their money on, is drinking. You know, and a lot of times these guys are like, oh, don't record me or don't show my spot. I'm like, well, you don't own this spot. You're taking up somebody else's land. You can see they're laying up through here. I don't think I would be spending too much of my money on cigs if I was homeless. But you can see this is an active camp here. Clothing everywhere. Garbage, shoes. You know, anything they can drag in here to sleep on. This is just disgusting. Shoes, clothing. This is disgusting. And look at this. Guys, we are in Bradenton, between Bradenton and Lakewood Ranch. Look at this. You know, I go and I do videos in all over the state of Florida. I try not to poop where I eat. But when I heard about Needle Creek, I just had to look into it. But you think about this, guys. Look at this. This is hidden right behind our major highways here in Bradenton and Lakewood Ranch. You know, and it's a shame, because I pay a crap load of money to live here, dang it. Now, I got no problem with other communities having this crap, but dang it, I live here and I pay a lot of money to live here. You know, if the law enforcement in you know, Duval or Brevard County breaks these people's rights, it's an outright injustice. But if you do it here where I live, dang it, I encourage you, get rid of this crap. Because let's be clear, I have a double standard, okay? If I go to your city and you got a bunch of homeless people, you suck. But if it's in the community where I live in, well, hold on, buddy, this is where I live here. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me be clear, I have a double standard. Like, I don't care about your community, I care about my community. I can't have this where I live. Where you live, hey, that's your problem, man. I live here. It's my problem now. So let me be very clear that I am very hypocritical and double standard about this topic. If it's in your community, well, I don't give a crap about where you live, but if it's in the community where I live and I go fishing, we got a problem then. There's a lemon. A while back, I was doing a documentary series. I was like, all the poor homeless people, they got nowhere to live. That same day I got home, and there was a homeless person in my community outside of my balcony. I was like, somebody eliminate this problem right about now. So it's weird how, you know, when I go to other communities and I see that they got a homeless problem, I'm like, hey, man, you know, you guys aren't treating these people right. But then when it's in my backyard, like when I saw the homeless person trying to sleep outside of my apartment building, man, I was infuriated. I was like, I pay too much money to live here. And you know what? So do the other people. So when I see camps like this that have been destroyed in other cities, I'm very quick to point out how the police is doing something wrong and how they're violating the homeless people's rights. But since I live here, y'all keep tearing this crap down. You heard me, Wody? So let me be clear. When it comes to crap like this in other people's community, it's an injustice and they ought to help their homeless people. But if it's in Lakewood Ranch where I live, we'll help you get a train ticket up out of this mug. Make no mistake about it. When I see these camps where I live, I'm not as compassionate. If I don't live in Jacksonville or Brevard County or Pasco County, I'm very considerate of the homeless people and their situation. But when they do this crap where I live, I'm not as sympathetic. I pay too much money to live here. I work with the homeless people, so I can't be a complete jerk to them because they'll pretty much hang me. But, you know, like here, you can see they've been huffing paint. There's paint here. And these are the colors that they like to use for huffing. You know, you got paint here. You got paint here. They also use, I found out recently, they can also kind of huff this. This person's huffing. Okay, they're getting high in my community. Most of the time when I see these homeless camps in other people's communities, I'll be like, hey man, you know, these people have mental illness. But when you look at this person, look at the amount of spray paint that this person has back here. You know, this isn't, they're huffing. And I just can't have this in my community. If this was happening in Pasco County or Brevard or Jacksonville, I wouldn't give two craps. But dang it, I go in that drive-thru in that Starbucks over there and I can't have this. Law enforcement needs to get rid of these homeless people by any means possible, even if it's illegal, as long as it's in the community where I live in. In other communities, they have to play by the rules somewhere else. But here, I'll give you guys the right to do whatever you want to. I'm not going to complain here. In fact, I don't even think it was law enforcement that cut up these tents here in Lakewood Ranch and Bradenton. I think it was a hurricane, guys. These people here, this is hurricane damage. The hurricane, look at this, guys. The hurricane came through and blew down their tent. What a shame. What a shame. The hurricane knocked down their tent. Now, I wouldn't put it past the law enforcement in Brevard and in Jacksonville and in Pasco County to tear these poor innocent people's homes apart. But here in Bradenton, the damage that you see here was caused by a hurricane. It faded away. Evidence would suggest that a hurricane unfortunately knocked down this homeless camp. And that's the thing about homelessness, you know. When it's in somebody else's community, oh, you're all sympathetic about it. But when you move into Lakewood Ranch where I live, man, that's a whole different problem. Let me be clear, I'm very sympathetic for the homeless people in Pasco County and stuff like that down there, bless their heart. Okay, guys, so this camp looks a little scarier because there's a giant tree that fell with the hurricane and there's somebody living down here. Wow, this looks so creepy. Oh, wow. I mean, it's creepy because it's very hot and sunny, but it's so shady underneath here. You can see they got their clothing where they're sleeping on. A giant tree that fell with the hurricane. It wasn't the law enforcement that did that. What a creepy sight. I mean, this site is... Oh, my hat. No, my hat. Oh, no. My hat's got fentanyl on it now. One team, one mission. To eliminate homelessness for my community. I mean, other communities, they have to fix it. But here where I live, we have to eliminate it. This is a monster of a tree that fell during a hurricane. And unfortunately, It fell right over this poor people's homeless camp. You can see this person's got some pants and a belt, a work shirt. They probably used that for panhandling. So they're just laying up in here, and the clothes smell so bad. Let me just get up out of here. Got that crap metal down there. That did what to a Cuban? Can you make folks cry when you hit them upside the head with a folding chair? I was riding my boat right outside of Montgomery, Alabama, when a folding chair caught my eye. He said, boy, can you make folks feel the hate that you got inside? If you're going to Montgomery, it's a long, long ride. Well, I was coming from Montgomery. I had my folding chair on my back when a stranger stopped by me with an antique folding chair. He was racist like 1960, half drunk and hollow-eyed, and we asked him, sir, can you please put your boat to the side? He says, it's a long time to wait. I'm gonna take my time. The white man sat down on the boat seat, and he turned on the radio, and them old racist songs from Alabama came on. Then I noticed a stranger was ghost white pale, and I knew there was something strange about this fight. He said, boy, can you make him feel the hate you got inside? Are you from the Gump? Do you hate people from the... And then a white woman said a word she should have never said, and that white folding chair hit her upside. Cause if you're Montgomery bound, let me tell you, it's a long, long ride. Then I cried just south of Nashville as I entered Alabama, cause I knew there was something racist about this land. It's an old woman in the SRT. Bradenton ain't playing. Bradenton ain't playing. I thought it was a young kid in the SRT. No, it's like grandma basically in the SRT up there. All right, guys. Now I gotta stay on the easement. I can't get off the easement here, because that's a construction site. You can't go in there. But this right here was one of the largest homeless camps in Florida, and it's now been demolished. As you can see, all this area here was a giant homeless camp. You can see what's left is just a dumpster and a pile of garbage. But this was, you know, in the geographical heart of Bradenton, one of the largest homeless camps that existed in Florida. There in the distance, you can see some of the debris that was left. This would have been the largest homeless camp in Manatee County. And it is still possible that inside of the woods are still homeless people living. However, because it is a construction site, we are not allowed to leave the easement. We have to stay on this easement here. Now, there's always a few people that refuse to leave, and that just pushes the problem into adjacent properties. And here is an adjacent property where a lot of the stuff that was on the other lot got pushed on over here. So it's a never-ending cycle. And look at how many thousands of mosquito larvae are there, guys. Thousands and thousands of mosquito larvae inside of that bucket alone. And while they were able to evict that homeless camp that was about 5 acres, they dragged as much as they could into an adjacent lot, and now the problem that was on that lot is over here. And that's pretty much what happens. They evict one place, all it does is move things over to the next. And now here in this adjacent lot, you have the overflow. And in here now, you have what they had over there. And you can see there are needles. Right there's a needle. So, you know, this is what that lifestyle leads to. These needles bring your life to this place. So before you consider putting that in your arm, just remember that that lifestyle will lead you to a place like this. And this place is also covered in needles everywhere. Even with my boots, I'm kind of afraid now. But you can see that type of lifestyle brings you to places like this. So, you know, it's not cool, it's not fun, it's not recreational. It leads your life into destruction. And when you get on those substances, your life will bring you to a place like this. And guys, I live here in Bradenton, and it's a beautiful city. We have beautiful beaches. You know, you can live like this and end up in a homeless camp, addicted, or you can work. Today I was at a dealership looking at brand new trucks. You know, you can do a lot of things with your life. Today I was at a dealership looking at brand new trucks. I decided I didn't like the terms they gave me, so I didn't buy it. I don't have to trade my car in if I don't want to. I work hard. I have a beautiful apartment on Lakewood Ranch. I have a car that I love. It's beautiful. You know, me and my wife go to the beach whenever we want to. Later on today, we're going to go to the beach when it cools down a little bit. You have the options and the abilities on these streets to either, you know, be here in a homeless camp. There's a dolphin here for some reason. You can see this dolphin ended up on the streets of Bradenton, Florida. And here he is, passed out in a homeless camp. You know, even the animals can end up hooked on this stuff, you know. And this is how this dolphin ended up. You can end up in one of these horrendous nightmare situations. And a lot of times people ask me, Jose, you know, how do people live in this mess? Well, when you're hooked on stuff, your mind becomes a fog. And that fog leads you to places like this. This is what, you know, that lifestyle brings you to. And a lot of people will tell you it's recreational. Oh, it's for fun, or, you know, whatever. Or it helps make your life easier. It doesn't. Okay? I'm so sick and tired of hearing these homeless people tell me how it makes their life easier and it helps them cope. It doesn't. It drags you deeper and deeper into this lifestyle that eventually destroys you. People die out here. People get an infection on their foot and they die out here. Okay? People OD in these woods and they're not found till they stink. And even when they stink, it might take months for somebody to find them, since the people in the camps are afraid to talk to the law. You know, out here, there's predators. People that will take advantage of you. There's a lot of clothes being dried here, so I think there's somebody living here. And I can also smell, and I can almost probably see it. I think they're planting some. There's some gardening work going on back here. I can smell it. That smell of fresh, not burnt, but like fresh. They might be growing a little bit back here. This is what this lifestyle brings you to. So, and you know what do they spend their money on? You know, here it is right there. What is this? Oh, it's probiotic. Okay, at least this guy was trying to drink something healthy. But in the smell of this stuff, human waste. You can see there's more camps back in here. This is what this lifestyle brings you to. You know, you have the duck underneath this thing. Oh, you had to lift it. Okay, I see what they did here. Coming through. I'm so deep in this mess, I don't even know which way to run if I had to. Hundreds of shopping carts in here. Hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating. When I say hundreds, I mean hundreds. Hundreds of shopping carts. Each one of these there's going to be somebody living here. This is a whole shanty town. Coming through, coming through. Coming through, it's just coming through, guys. This is scary. This is a shanty town, literally. Coming through. Coming through, coming through. Anybody here? Just coming through. No harm intended, just coming through. Guys, we are inside of a shanty town, literally. This is unbelievable. Razor wire there. Caution signs. Look at this. This is a difficult life to live. Anybody here? You know, somebody could, oh crap. Somebody could OD out here. You wouldn't even know where to find them. Anybody here? Look at this. Unbelievable. I mean, the bed bugs that are going to be in here. Can you imagine this being your life? This is what a use and addiction brings your life to. So let's get out of here, because this place is absolutely terrifying. And you can see, you know, how they spend their money. Me, if I was homeless, that's the last thing I'd be spending my money on. You know, imagine being homeless and on top of that, you got addiction, sucking your life and your money away. This is absolutely terrifying. Let's get out of here. And it's like 110 degrees with the heat index. If you had to run right now, I couldn't run a quarter of a mile without passing out. This is just horrible. And while they demolished that homeless camp over there, you can see that all they did was drag all their crap into an adjacent lot. And now this lot here is going to have the same problem, which means it's a never-ending nightmare. One property gets cleaned up, the other one gets trashed. It's hot, it's humid, everything's wet, everything stinks. This is a life you do not want to live. A lot of this garbage, people ask me, how do you even get to this point? Well, your mind is clouded, you're confused. They're actually putting out these things for people to drop their needles in. You can see they're putting out biohazard, I don't know if this is urine or what, but you can see they've actually been bringing out these things so people can put their needles in. So they drop these red boxes so that the needles don't end up, you know, in Florida. Most states will do this, but the state of Florida won't. This must be a personal, you know, a private endeavor, because other states will do this. Other states will bring these plastic bins out to homeless camps so that people dispose their needles properly. This is my first time seeing this in Florida. The state of Florida doesn't really offer this too much. You can see that there's 3 of them, actually 4. So somebody brought out these bins so that they could put their needles in them. And I looked through them, there's no needles in them, so they're not using it, that's for sure. There's needles on the ground, but there ain't needles in the bins. But I don't even think they're using them for that purpose. I think they've repurposed them for something else. I don't really see any needles in them. Yeah, they're empty. I mean, they brought these plastic containers out here so they put their needles in, but they're not putting their needles in them. And well, guys, we're gonna leave this homeless camp because I don't feel comfortable here. But yes, during the daytime, they're empty. I mean, and also this stuff, it holds water. All this here, as you walk past this, you can actually feel the humidity coming off it, because this stuff holds the water. So when it rains overnight, and actually I can smell urine too for some reason. Oh, the smell of urine is unbearable, and it's just a horrendous smell. But then, you know, when this stuff gets wet with the morning mist, it holds it instead of evaporating it. When the day comes through, I'm walking past this, and I can literally smell and feel the humidity coming off of this stuff. It is just completely unbearable, and I'm out of breath as well. Show you guys the side of my neck. My skin's kind of getting rashes because there's so many smells and chemicals and stuff that my skin, I can feel my skin just kind of getting rashy. Look at my head, my neck. I kind of feel like I'm getting rashes just from the, you know, the smells and the allergies and stuff. Yeah, and I know what they say, money can't buy everything, but it can buy me a boat. It can buy me a brand new Silverado. Hey, yo, anybody need some sandwich? Oh, one of y'all need a sandwich? All right, brother. Have a good day, my man. All right, bro. People who don't like helping say, oh, I'm not going to enable anybody. Well, hold on. Enabling and helping are not the same thing. Somebody could be an addict and you can help them, okay, without enabling them. You can help people without enabling them, okay? And you can enable people without helping them too. Helping and enabling are not the same thing. Okay, there's a difference between helping somebody and enabling somebody. They're very different things. Earlier in the day, there were 4 people at this intersection panhandling. Early in the day. Now it's about 3:30 in the afternoon and they're not here. But the guy that's doing construction, he started working at 6 in the morning and he doesn't finish till 5. You know? So it's hard for working class people to have empathy for people that don't want to work. And it's a very complicated issue. But luckily, I live in prestigious Lakewood Ranch, and I have no empathy for homeless people once they're east of 75. So if you're west of 75, I have all the love and compassion for you. But if you come east of 75, I'm a very unsympathetic person once I enter my community of Lakewood Ranch. And see what these people are doing? That's illegal in Florida. That's not legal. You know, they might pretend like they're in a church or something. That's illegal in Florida. So this right here, that's illegal. They're not allowed to do that in Florida. Okay, in Florida, Manatee County has a no panhandling ordinance. That includes organizations and churches. So that right there is a scam too. Okay, that's not legitimate. If that was a legitimate organization, one, why isn't their own constituents within their organization the ones making the donations? And two, why are they violating county ordinance? If that's the church supposedly or whatever they're doing, why are they violating county ordinance? In Manatee County, you are not allowed to panhandle. So if you see somebody panhandling out on the median like that, they're violating the county ordinance. And I would never do something like that. I've never done that.